Hi everyone, I'm 32 and I've been married to my husband for almost 6 years. I thought we had a solid, quiet little life, 2 cats, a comfortable home, and a decent rhythm that made me feel safe. But 2 months ago, my sister moved in, and ever since then, that feeling has vanished like smoke. My sister, Nora, is 30 and just went through a nasty divorce. Her husband cheated on her with someone from his gym, and the fallout was brutal. She didn't want to stay in their house after everything, and since she didn't have a place lined up, I told her she could come stay with us temporarily. I didn't even ask my husband first, I just figured, what kind of person would say no to their own sister in a moment like that? At first, it was fine. She was quiet, kept to herself, helped clean up around the house, and stayed out of our way. My husband, Matt, even offered to move some stuff out of his home office to give her more space. It all seemed like a nice, kind gesture at the time. Looking back, I realize now that it was the first tiny crack. Nora and Matt had always gotten along well, but nothing more than friendly sibling-in-law vibes. I never got a weird feeling. She even used to joke about how boring Matt was and how she couldn't imagine living with someone so into spreadsheets and fantasy football. But lately, something's shifted. It started with little things. Like the day I got home from work and found the two of them cooking dinner together, laughing, moving in sync like they'd done it 100 times. Or the time I walked into the living room and she was wearing his hoodie. She brushed it off as being cold and grabbing whatever was closest, but it left a pit in my stomach I couldn't shake. Then came the sleepwalking incident. That's what Matt called it, anyway. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. a couple of weeks ago and realized Matt wasn't in bed. I figured he was in the bathroom, but 10 minutes passed. I wandered out to look for him and found him in the kitchen, whispering with Nora. They both jumped like I'd caught them red-handed. Matt swore up and down that Nora had a nightmare and was pacing the house. He said he got up to check on her and talk her down. I wanted to believe it. I really did. But something about the way her eyes flicked past me, like she'd been caught in something, made my skin crawl. That was the first time I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. There's more. So much more. The morning after I caught Matt and Nora whispering in the kitchen, I told myself it wasn't what it looked like. I didn't want to be the paranoid wife. I didn't want to be the jealous sister. I chalked it up to the stress of everything, Nora's messy divorce, Matt working long hours, me trying to keep everything normal. I told myself I was being sensitive. But then I noticed something I couldn't unsee. Nora's toothbrush was in our bathroom. Now, that might not sound strange to most people, she lives in our house, after all, but we have a guest bathroom. A fully stocked, clean, cozy guest bathroom that she's been using since day one. We'd even put in fresh towels and soaps for her. So why would her toothbrush be in the master bathroom, right next to Matt's? I didn't say anything. I just stood there staring at it, like it might offer me some kind of explanation. It didn't. So I quietly moved it back to the guest bathroom and waited to see what would happen. The next morning? It was back in ours. That was the moment I stopped pretending things were fine. I started watching them. Subtle things. Their body language. How often they touched each other when passing in the hallway. The way they laughed together, quiet, breathy, inside joke laughter that they tried to muffle when I walked into the room. Matt, who used to spend his weekends gaming or fixing things around the house, now suddenly had a new hobby, long, deep conversations with my sister. Sometimes I'd find them outside on the patio, talking for hours. I'd ask what they were discussing, and Matt would brush it off like it was no big deal. Just helping her sort through stuff, he'd say. She needs someone to talk to. Apparently, that someone wasn't me. One night, I walked past the laundry room and saw her basket sitting on the floor. I don't even know why I peeked, maybe I just wanted to confirm my own suspicions, but right there on top of her clothes was a t-shirt I knew was Matt's. One of his favorite old band tees that I've seen him wear 100 times. I stared at it for a long time, trying to rationalize. Maybe he gave it to her because she needed something to sleep in. Maybe it got mixed up in the laundry. Maybe. No. No more maybes. I started feeling like a stranger in my own home. Everything familiar now seemed off. The energy was weird. The rooms felt colder. Like something was rotting underneath the surface and I was the only one who could smell it. And then came the final straw, for that week, anyway. Late one night, I woke up again to find Matt gone from bed. I didn't rush to find him. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, heart racing. I knew where he was. I could feel it. When he finally slipped back into the bedroom, nearly an hour later, he smelled like her perfume. The same citrusy vanilla scent Nora always wears. The same one that lingers in the hallway after she walks by. He didn't even try to explain this time. Just climbed into bed, rolled over, and pretended to fall asleep. I stared at his back for hours. The next day, I bought a small voice recorder. Not because I wanted to catch them in the act, but because I needed to stop feeling like I was losing my mind. And what I heard on the first night I used it. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there in bed, eyes wide open, hand resting under my pillow where I'd hidden the tiny recorder. It was still running when Matt snuck out again, around 2:40 a.m. this time. I heard the soft creak of the door, the nearly soundless padding of his footsteps down the hall, and the faint click of the guest room door closing. I waited until sunrise before I touched the recorder. My heart was in my throat. I felt sick. Part of me didn't even want to hear it. I was scared of what I'd find, not because it would be shocking, but because it would confirm what I already knew. I sat on the floor of our walk-in closet, closed the door, and hit play. At first, there was just silence. Then the quiet hum of the air conditioning, a few faint creaks of the house settling. Then his voice. I recognized it instantly. Low, careful, soft in a way I hadn't heard in months. He said her name, Nora. He asked if she was okay. She laughed. That same breathy, whispery laugh I'd been hearing through walls for weeks. She said she couldn't sleep. That she felt so alone, even with people around. That being in this house made her feel things she hadn't felt in years. He said she wasn't alone. That he was here for her. That he always would be. And then there was silence for a while, just the soft sound of blankets shifting and someone breathing a little too hard. Not a word. Just that kind of silence that tells you everything, even without sound. Then she said something I can't stop replaying. Do you ever wish things were different? And his answer, more than you know. That was it for me. I didn't need anything more graphic than that. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't about physical proof. It was emotional. The way he talked to her, the gentleness in his voice, the weight of his words, it was more intimate than anything we'd shared in months. I sat there for almost an hour, listening to the rest, even though nothing else was said. Just rustling, a door opening again around 3:40, and the soft thud of footsteps down the hall. He came back to our room and slipped into bed. I remembered that moment. I'd pretended to be asleep. But now I knew everything. And I had proof. Still. I didn't know what to do with it yet. I didn't want to explode. I wanted to be smart, strategic. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me spiral. So I kept quiet. For the next few days, I acted like I didn't know anything. I smiled. I cooked dinner. I laughed at Matt's dumb jokes. I even told Nora she looked nice in that new dress she got. And while they thought I was blissfully unaware, I was planning something they wouldn't see coming. I just needed one more thing to make it perfect. And I got it, completely by accident, 2 nights later. 2 nights after that recording, I was lying in bed again, pretending to sleep, mind spinning like it had been for weeks. Matt was next to me, scrolling on his phone, completely unaware I was awake. At some point, I heard him sigh, then turn over to plug his phone into the charger. I waited a few seconds before I opened my eyes. His phone screen was still lit, face down, but not locked. Matt's the kind of guy who never changes his settings, still uses the same 4-digit passcode he's had since we started dating. I knew it. I always had. But I never used it. I never had to. Until now. Once I was sure he was asleep, I reached over slowly, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I took the phone and slipped quietly out of bed. In the bathroom, I locked the door behind me, sat on the closed toilet lid, and opened his messages. I didn't even have to search. Her name was right there at the top. Nora Speech Balloon. I clicked, and what I found confirmed every nightmare I'd tried to ignore. The messages went back weeks, some innocent, sure, talking about groceries, the cats, family stuff. But mixed in were things that made my stomach twist. Compliments. Inside jokes. Late-night confessions. Mentions of dreams they had, together. Then a message from Matt just 3 days ago. I dreamt you were in my bed again last night. I woke up and actually reached for you. And Nora replied. Maybe one day you won't have to wake up alone. There it was. No more pretending. I scrolled further. Found photos. Not explicit, but not innocent either. Nora in Matt's hoodie, smiling in our bedroom mirror. A blurry photo of them on the couch, his hand barely out of frame but clearly resting on her leg. Messages about being careful, making sure she doesn't catch on. She being me. I put the phone down and stared at myself in the mirror. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at myself and saw someone I didn't recognize anymore. Someone who'd spent weeks twisting herself into knots to avoid seeing the obvious. Someone who had offered her home, her trust, and her heart, and got nothing but betrayal in return. And then? I smiled. Because now I had it all. The recording. The texts. The photos. And the best part? They still had no idea. I walked back into the bedroom and set Matt's phone back exactly where it was. Climbed into bed. Let him roll over and wrap an arm around me like everything was fine. I didn't move. Because I had a plan. One they'd never see coming. But first, I needed to invite a few people over. The next morning, I was up early, earlier than usual. I made coffee, opened the windows, played soft music like I was in the best mood of my life. Matt came into the kitchen bleary-eyed and smiled when he saw me flipping pancakes like some perfect 1950s housewife. He kissed my cheek and said I seemed lighter. I just smiled and told him I'd had a breakthrough in therapy. That I was ready to let go of resentment and open up more. That maybe Nora moving in wasn't such a bad thing after all. He looked relieved. Like he'd been carrying a secret and thought I'd just buried it without ever digging it up. I offered to make dinner for all of us that weekend. A proper sit-down meal. Just the three of us. But then I casually mentioned inviting a few extras. My mom. His sister. Nora's best friend. Some of our mutual friends from college. Matt blinked, unsure. He asked if it wasn't a bit much. I told him I thought it would be nice, something warm and healing. He nodded slowly, probably afraid to say no. What I didn't say was, I knew which people would see right through them. My mom, for one, always hated how flirty Nora could be. His sister, who's sharp as hell, once told me Matt's nice guy routine would crumble if I ever stopped babying him. And Nora's best friend? She and I had stayed close over the years. Closer than Nora knew. I sent out the invites that night. A last-minute impromptu dinner, I called it. Everyone said yes. Over the next couple of days, I went full Martha Stewart. I cleaned like my sanity depended on it. Bought fresh flowers, new wine glasses, set the table like it was Thanksgiving. I wanted it to look beautiful. I wanted the scene to be perfect. Because once it all came crashing down, I wanted it to be remembered. Nora floated around the house like she'd won some invisible competition. She tried on 3 outfits before settling on a flowy dress that I'd seen her wear on dates back in the day. She even asked me if it was too much. I told her she looked stunning. I meant it. I wanted her to feel like the center of attention. Just long enough. Matt helped with the wine. He played host like it came naturally. Toasted to healing and family when everyone arrived. I watched him. I watched them. I watched how they exchanged glances, little gestures, how her hand brushed his when she passed him the serving bowl. No one else seemed to notice. Not yet. But they would. After dinner, I asked everyone to gather in the living room. Said I had something to share, something deeply personal that I'd finally come to peace with. Matt looked nervous. Nora blinked, probably expecting some emotional speech about forgiveness. Instead, I walked over to the TV, turned on the screen, and inserted a flash drive. The screen flickered. And up popped a screenshot of Matt's message to Nora. I dreamt you were in my bed again last night. I turned to look at them. The room fell silent. Matt's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. And then the next photo came up. Nora in his hoodie. In our bedroom. The gasps were instant. Nora's best friend covered her mouth. My mom stiffened. Matt's sister stood up so fast her chair tipped. Then I hit play on the audio clip. His voice, clear as day, more than you know. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because they said it all. But that was just the first half. There was still more. The room didn't just fall quiet, it collapsed. Emotionally. The moment the recording played, you could feel the air vanish. People exchanged stunned looks, some glancing from the TV to me, others frozen on Matt, who sat there like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. But this wasn't a nightmare. This was his reality. One he made with his own hands, in my house, under my roof, right in front of me. Matt stammered something like, "This is out of context," but his voice was weak, cracking, like he didn't even believe what he was saying. He looked at me, as if I might still protect him. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I just stood there, letting the moment breathe. Then Nora spoke. And somehow, it was even worse than I expected. She stood up, looked around at everyone, and said, "We were just talking. It's not what it sounds like." Her best friend shot her a look that could kill. Matt's sister muttered, "Oh my God," under her breath and started pacing. But Nora doubled down. She actually had the nerve to say, "I didn't mean for anything to happen. I was in a dark place. I didn't feel seen." And then? She turned to me and said, "I'm sorry if I overstepped." If. The word rattled inside my skull like a firecracker. I let out the smallest laugh. One of those I can't believe this is real kind of laughs. Then I walked to the middle of the room, where I'd hidden a small folder behind a plant. Printed screenshots. More messages. Bank records. A copy of a hotel reservation that Matt had paid for a month ago using our joint credit card, under a fake name, but the email confirmation had auto-synced to our shared inbox. I handed it all to Matt's sister, who looked at it like it was radioactive. That's when Matt cracked. He stood up, started raising his voice, not at me, but at Nora. Asking her why she saved the messages, why she didn't delete them like they agreed, why she let me find everything. So that was it. Not sorry for what he did, just sorry he got caught. The guests started leaving. My mom stayed behind, pale and stunned, while Matt's sister cornered him in the hallway and tore into him. I didn't hear everything, but I caught, "You're just like Dad, and you ruined her." As for Nora? She tried to leave quietly. Tried to slink away while everyone was distracted. But I stopped her. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I just said, "I already called a moving company. They'll be here tomorrow at 9. You won't be." Her face flushed red. But she didn't argue. She knew she couldn't. Matt tried to follow me after everyone left, tried to talk, said he didn't mean for this to happen, that it was just emotions, not actions. But I told him something I'd been holding on to for weeks, that I'd been pregnant, and lost it, 3 weeks ago. And I never told him, because he was already gone. His face crumbled. But I didn't cry. Not then. Not in front of him. I just said, "Pack your things. You'll be getting the divorce papers by Monday." And then I closed the door. But the story doesn't end there. Because someone else reached out to me later that night. And that changes everything. That night, after the chaos, the screaming, the stunned silence, and the slammed doors, I collapsed on the couch. The house was quiet for the first time in what felt like forever. No Nora humming in the kitchen. No Matt tiptoeing down the hallway in the middle of the night. Just me, and the sound of nothing. I should have felt victorious. Or free. Or something. But all I felt was hollow. Until my phone buzzed. It was a name I hadn't seen in years, Lena. She was Nora's old college roommate. We were never super close, but we'd hung out a bunch when Nora and I still lived in the same city. I hadn't spoken to her in ages. Her message was short. "Hey, this might be random, but I think I need to tell you something. About Matt. And your sister. Can we talk?" My stomach dropped. I called her immediately. No hesitation. What she told me unraveled everything I thought I already knew. Apparently, this wasn't the first time. Not the first time Nora had crossed a line with someone else's boyfriend. Not even the first time she had set her sights on mine. Lena told me something that made my blood run cold. 2 years ago, when Matt and I were going through a rough patch, he was working late a lot, I was dealing with family issues, Nora had visited us for a weekend. I barely remembered it now. Just thought of it as a normal sister visit. I had gone out with friends that Saturday night, and Matt had stayed behind. That night, according to Lena, Nora confessed something during a wine-soaked phone call. She'd said Matt looked lonely. That he was clearly not being appreciated. And then she laughed and said, "I wouldn't mind borrowing him for a night." Lena said she hadn't thought much of it at the time, chalked it up to too much wine and Nora being dramatic. But after seeing my recent posts, she felt sick. She started putting pieces together. Messages Nora had sent her. Hints. Slips of the tongue. A pattern. Nora had always been the girl who wanted what wasn't hers. And Matt? He was the type to want to be wanted. Lena also dropped one last bombshell. Nora had done this to her too. Years ago, when Lena was dating a guy she really liked, Nora had spent a weekend with them. A month later, Lena's boyfriend ghosted her. She found out after they broke up that he and Nora had hooked up, and Nora had pretended like it never happened. Told Lena, maybe he just wasn't that into you. Everything clicked. The patterns. The glances. The fake sisterhood. The way she always played innocent. I wasn't dealing with a lost soul. I was dealing with a calculated woman who had spent years perfecting this game. And Matt? He walked right into her hands. Or maybe he had before. Lena's call rewired everything for me. Now I had to find out just how far back this really went. And what I found next will change the way you see everything. After I got off the phone with Lena, I sat there in the dark, replaying every moment of the last 2 years like some twisted highlight reel. I thought I'd known betrayal. Thought the worst of it had happened the moment I saw Nora in Matt's hoodie, when I caught that whisper at 3 a.m., when I heard my husband say he wished things were different. But Lena's words cracked something open. This wasn't new. This had roots. So I went digging. Matt and I had shared a laptop for years, mostly for bills and travel planning. He never cleared his history, never logged out of anything. I'd stopped using it after I got my own for work, but I knew he still used it for our taxes and his occasional fantasy football obsession. I opened it. His email was still logged in. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. But after 20 minutes of aimless searching, I saw something that made my chest tighten. A folder in his Gmail titled Archive 2019. I clicked. Dozens of emails. Most between him and clients, old receipts, boring stuff. But then, a thread. Subject, that weekend thought balloon. And the sender? Nora. I opened it. The email was short. Dated 2 weeks after that weekend Lena had mentioned, the one where I'd gone out and Matt stayed behind with Nora. I know we said we'd never talk about it again, but I need to say this, I don't regret it. I know it's wrong, but part of me wishes you'd say you don't either. I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking. They'd already slept together. 2 years ago. While I was still fighting for our marriage, planning a surprise anniversary trip, thinking we were just in a rut. They weren't reconnecting now, they were resuming something they'd already started. And Matt? He'd kept that email. Didn't delete it. Didn't hide it. Just stuffed it in a folder like some memento. I felt numb. I didn't even cry. There were no tears left. Just this deep, pulsing ache in my chest that felt like someone hollowed me out with a spoon. But the worst part? There were more emails. Dozens. Mostly one-sided. Nora writing. Matt replying sparingly, never explicit, but never shutting it down either. Just enough to keep her close. To keep the door cracked open. She'd written things like, "Do you remember how you looked at me that night? I've never forgotten. Sometimes I wish we were both different people. Braver. If things ever fall apart between you two, I'll be here." And now? She was here. She had been, right under my nose. And I had let her in, handed her the keys, fed her, defended her, made excuses for her. While she sat across the dinner table from me, remembering nights in my house that I hadn't even known about. I closed the laptop slowly, stood up, and went to the hall closet. Because now I had something else to do. This wasn't going to be a quiet ending. It was going to be a reminder. For both of them. And for me. I was done playing the victim. The next morning, I packed a single suitcase. Nothing too obvious. Just enough to make it look like I was going away for a weekend. I told Matt I needed some me time, that I was emotionally drained after the dinner, and I didn't want to be around any reminders right now. He actually looked relieved. Like he was off the hook. He hugged me, awkwardly, and told me to take as long as I needed. Said he'd hold down the fort. Nora didn't come out of her room. Coward. I left at 9 a.m. sharp. But I didn't go far. I parked 2 blocks away and waited. At 10:32 a.m., a moving truck pulled into our driveway. Exactly as planned. See, while Matt and Nora were sleeping off their shame, I had spent the previous day arranging a professional removal service. I gave them a list, every piece of furniture I had bought before the marriage, the dishes and silverware from my grandmother, my artwork, my books, my clothes, and both cats, who were already safe at my mom's. I had marked everything with a tiny red sticker the night before, pretending I was organizing donations. Neither of them noticed. By 1 p.m., the house was half empty. By 3 p.m., it was a shell. I had the locks changed before dinner. But the coup de grace? I left 2 things behind. On the kitchen counter, in plain view, I placed 1. A printed stack of the emails and screenshots I found, highlighted and timestamped. 2. My wedding ring in a glass bowl labeled lost and found. Then I turned on the baby monitor. Not for a baby, Matt and I never got that far, but one we'd bought years ago for our first cat. We used to joke that it was overkill, a cat nanny cam. I'd reconnected it before I left, just in time to catch the aftermath. And what I saw was better than revenge. Around 5 p.m., Matt and Nora came home with groceries. They looked confused at first, probably thought we'd been robbed. Then Matt saw the ring. And the folder. He opened it, started reading. He didn't move for a full 5 minutes. Just stood there, mouth slack, staring at his own betrayal printed out in black and white. Nora hovered behind him, pale as paper. She said something, I couldn't hear it, but I saw her gesture toward the living room, like she wanted to explain. He didn't let her. He dropped the folder, walked out of frame, and I heard a door slam in the background. She just stood there. Alone. In the echo of the mess they made. The texts started coming in an hour later. From Matt. Then Nora. Then Matt again. Apologies. Justifications. Blame. Begging. I didn't reply. Because there was nothing left to say. I wasn't gone for the weekend. I was gone for good. But there was still one thing I needed to do to close this chapter. It's been 3 weeks since I walked away from the house, from my marriage, from the version of myself who tolerated being betrayed with a smile. 3 weeks of silence, of peace, of waking up without that constant weight in my chest. 3 weeks since I watched them unravel in real time, stunned and furious that I'd outmaneuvered them. But I knew I couldn't end this story quietly. There was one last thing I needed to do, not for them, not even for revenge, but for me. I needed a clean ending. So I wrote a letter. I kept it simple. No venom. No screaming between the lines. Just truth. Dear Matt and Nora. You two deserve each other. Not in the romantic, storybook way. But in the way that broken people seem to orbit each other, hoping to suck something meaningful from the wreckage they create. Matt, you never stood up for me. Not once. When you saw your sister-in-law collapse in the middle of a broken marriage, you saw an opportunity. And you took it. Quietly. Cowardly. With whispers and glances and a shared bed that was never yours to offer. Nora, I opened my home to you. I defended you. I believed in you even when my gut told me not to. You didn't just sleep with my husband. You planned it. You waited. You smiled in my face while planting knives in my back. You may have each other now. But you'll never have me again. I'm done playing small. Done doubting myself. Done keeping the peace while my world burns. Enjoy the silence I leave behind. Because I've taken back everything that matters, my dignity, my name, my power, and yes, the cats. Good luck explaining that to the landlord. Me. I left it in the mailbox of the house 2 days ago. They're still there. Together, apparently. I don't care. I've moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment downtown. It's nothing fancy. But it's mine. Every chair, every mug, every candle smells like a fresh start. I hung my favorite print over the couch the first night I got here. It says, build a life you don't need to run away from. And that's what I'm doing. I started therapy. I got a new job offer, actually, one I would have said no to 6 months ago because it was too far from home. Funny how the idea of home changes, huh? People still ask me if I'm angry. If I'm heartbroken. If I'd take him back if he came crawling. I tell them the truth. I'm not angry anymore. I'm awake. And I'm never crawling back to anything ever again. Thanks, Reddit, for reading. I hope someone out there who needs to leave sees this and realizes, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you're absolutely not stuck. You can burn it all down and still walk out the door with your head high. Because I did. And the air has never felt clearer.